So today I would like to read this very interesting chapter in this book, Spirit Babies, which primarily is around communicating with souls you want to call in, but also has an entire chapter directly addressing abortion and what happens with spirit babies around abortion. And I think this is a really helpful framework and a non guilt or shame laden one around this topic that isn't heard from enough. And again, Walter Mackichen is a man, and bless his soul, a man who was gifted with the talent of speaking to spirit babies, apparently, and wrote this amazing book. In fact, a book in which many people have read, and I think it brings a lot of comfort to some that maybe think in this framework. And also his framework for thinking about miscarriage is also quite powerful. So this is chapter 5 from Walter Mackichen's Spirit Babies: How to Communicate with the Child You're Meant to Have. And chapter 5 is called What About Abortion? Abortion and Spirit Babies. Whenever I lecture on spirit babies, someone will inevitably ask, how do spirit babies feel about abortion? This is not an easy question to answer because spirit babies all respond individually to the termination of the birth cycle. Some feel angry, lost, and abandoned, while others show a great compassion and understanding for the circumstances and health of the mother. In order to understand a spirit baby's attitude towards abortion, it's important to understand a bit about the energy dynamics of their world. Every non-physical dimension has a set of energies that defines the activities of its inhabitants. In the world of the dead, for example, the defining energies are vision, responsibility, and release. The purpose of this realm is to allow the spirit to see the effect of its earthly actions and to take responsibility for them. Once this process is completed, the spirit releases the identity of its previous life and is free to leave the realm of the dead and pursue its next incarnation. The defining forces of the world of spirit babies are nurturing and creation. A spirit entering this realm finds a world much like a mother's womb. This supportive environment constantly nurtures the spirit, helping it create and grow into its new identity. No matter what befalls a spirit baby on its journey to incarnation, whether it's problems with the conception contract, miscarriage, or abortion, it is always part of the environment that preserves and supports its individual destiny. The other important aspect of the spirit baby world is the energy of creation. It is this creative energy that allows the spirit baby a great freedom to explore the possibilities life has to offer. When I look at a spirit baby, I'm often treated to a succession of constantly changing images representing the different roles the spirit baby will have to play in its future life. By creating and exploring these images, the spirit baby gets to know its strengths, limitations, and fears. The purpose of this creative force is to help the spirit baby become a successful human being. The nature of the physical world is one that constantly challenges us to create the life we want. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fail and have to start over again. Learning to create in such a world is an important survival skill. When an unborn spirit experiences abortion, it learns one of the basic lessons of creation. We do not always get what we want. To be successful, we must constantly reinvest our creative energies, regardless of the disappointments and setbacks that occur. After an abortion, the unborn spirit does not die, nor does it lose the ability to create. The womb-like energy of the spirit baby world nurtures and invigorates the returning spirit, placing it once again in a position to accept human life. I do not mean to imply that abortion is an easy process for the spirit baby. Abortion means the terms of the conception contract have not been fulfilled. The conception contract is essentially a promise. The mother and father promise to create a body that will help the spirit baby fulfill its destiny. When this agreement is not kept, the spirit baby must face the fact that the promise has been broken. Like children, spirit babies react to their parents' broken promises in many different ways. Some react with empathy and show a great understanding of the mental, physical, and emotional circumstances that make abortion necessary. Some feel sad and become silent and withdrawn. Others react with anger, demanding an explanation. Whatever their reaction, I have noticed that spirit babies do not morally judge or condemn their prospective mother or parents for choosing abortion. As the following stories illustrate, spirit babies view abortion as a personal matter. Any issues arising from it must be worked out between themselves and their prospective parents. In the end, most only have one question: do you still want me? In my experience, one of the most difficult aspects of abortion is that the mother must face the issue alone. Even in situations where the father is present and supportive, the nature of the conception contract places the woman in the decision making position. Her body and spirit must carry the spirit baby from conception to birth. She is the one who will be asked to invest the most physically and psychically. Spirit babies do return to their mothers after an abortion. This is a phenomena I've observed countless times in my practice. What draws them back is the mother's intention. Is abortion her way of saying no to motherhood, or simply saying not now? Spirit babies are very adept at sensing whether they are really wanted. If a woman's commitment to motherhood is strong and she expresses a loving desire to continue the relationship, most spirit babies will gladly return. Reunited again. Joni was happily married and expecting her first child. She and her husband had recently become interested in the concept of reincarnation, and they were intrigued by the idea that they might have known their child in a previous life. Joni, especially, was curious. All my friends who have babies tell me it's like a new beginning, like a new chapter in your life. I feel like something is being completed, as if I'm finishing something I began long ago. Does this mean I have some kind of past connection with my baby? Joni's aura was aglow with life. It had a warm gold and orange color, indicating a strong, healthy pregnancy. Floating in this glow of orange and gold was the image of a little boy contentedly sucking his thumb. When I asked if he had known Joni before, he removed his thumb from his mouth, smiled, and folded his hands palm to palm as if in a prayer. I didn't understand what his action meant, so I asked my question again. I knew her when she was 19, he said in a small voice. When I repeated his words, Joni began to cry gently. I had an abortion when I was 19. I was pregnant and my boyfriend deserted me. I felt like I had no choice. I always wanted to be a mom, so the decision was very hard for me. Afterward, I prayed every day for forgiveness and the chance to give that spirit life again. Is this the same being? Asked Joni. In response to Joni's questions, the little boy reached behind his back and pulled out a Raggedy Ann doll. He then returned his thumb to his mouth as if to say, no more questions. The little boy's answer was more than enough for Joni. It's him. I know it's him, she said as I described the doll. After the abortion, I was so depressed that I cried myself to sleep almost every night. One of the only comforts was my old Raggedy Ann doll. Whenever I held her, it felt like everything was going to be okay. Do you think that was my baby's message? Is everything okay between us now? Before I could answer, the image of the little boy floated over Joni and nestled into her heart chakra. Never mind, Joni said, as she touched her hand to the center of her chest. I know we are complete. I feel it in my heart. Joni's spirit baby returned to her after the abortion. Joni's prayer and her fervent desire for another chance made him feel wanted. His touching gesture of nesting in her heart was an act of healing, trust, and forgiveness. Whatever issues he had with the abortion were in the past. The contented, happy spirit baby that I encountered knew he was loved and was eager to give love in return. Abortion is not an easy process for spirit babies. When the terms of the conception contract are not fulfilled, the spirit baby is at a crossroads on its journey to human life. It is the same frame of the conception contract simply being changed, or is it the contract itself being dissolved? It is not a clear indication from the woman or couple about the future of the contract. Some spirit babies can begin to feel lost and confused. This lost and confused energy can often negatively impact a woman's healing process after an abortion. As this next story illustrates, a woman and her spirit baby can face this confusion and come to a healing balance. Physical and emotional healing. Naomi was in the beginning to get her life back on track. After years of substance abuse, she had joined a 12-step program and was actually enjoying being drug-free. Her physical health, however, was a problem. I had an abortion 3 months ago and my uterus hasn't quite healed. Besides my doctor, I've consulted an herbalist and acupuncturist, but I'm still not getting any results. I've been learning that everything happens for a reason. Can you help me understand what's going on here? I began by checking the viability of Naomi's health channels. These channels run parallel to the spine. When the body is healing successfully after a trauma or illness, these channels appear as bright, vibrant lines of color extending from the top of the head to the base of the spine. If the body's healing is being impeded on an energetic level, sections of these channels will appear distorted, broken, or dark. These are the sections I focus on clairvoyantly when I want to identify what is blocking the healing process. The energy in Naomi's channels flowed straight and smooth until it reached the area near the base of her spine. There it distorted into a cloud of gray mist. As I looked into the mist, I began to discern the image of a half-completed stone house with no roof. A girl was seated on a pile of stones in front of the house. "Are you the spirit baby who wanted to live in this house?" I asked telepathically. The spirit baby nodded. I told her I was here to help Naomi heal after the abortion. "Does Naomi still want me? I can't decide." I asked whether the spirit baby had known Naomi before. "She was my mother once. She was the best. But does she want me now? I can't tell. I can't decide." As the spirit finished speaking, the image of the girl stood up and began to walk slowly around the pile of stones. When I opened my eyes to address Naomi, she had her hand over her uterus. "Whatever you're doing has sure stirred things up down there. Can you tell me what's wrong?" asked Naomi. I explained to Naomi that after an abortion, the spirit baby usually releases its connection to the woman's energy system. In her case, however, the spirit was still attached. The spirit baby's confusion had created an energy blockage near her uterus, preventing her energy system from fully supporting her efforts to heal. I then repeated the spirit baby's words and asked Naomi if she thought children were part of her future. "That's one of the questions I had for you," said Naomi. "I would like to say yes, but I still don't trust myself. I have to take things one day at a time." "I think you will decide to have children," I told her. When I saw a spirit baby, she was sitting in front of the half-completed house. If the conception contract between you had been dissolved, the house would have appeared decimated, deserted. The half-built appearance of the house is a positive sign. The abortion just delayed the completion of the conception contract. I gave Naomi several meditations to help her heal and rebalance her body, mind, and spirit. When I finished, she asked if there was something she could do to help the spirit baby and gain perspective on the motherhood issue. As I considered her questions, the image of the girl in the half-built home appeared again. Now, however, the girl was picking up stones from the pile and placing them on the unfinished walls. Taking my cue from the spirit baby, I asked Naomi to take a few minutes each day and visualize that she and the young girl were building a house together. "You do not have to finish the whole project in one day," I told her. "Just imagine that you and the girl are working together, building up the walls and roof, a few stones at a time." After 2 weeks, Naomi called to report that her uterus had healed. When I inquired how she was doing with the house building visualization, Naomi laughed. "Last night, when I was imagining picking up a stone, the little girl ran up and hugged me. I didn't know that I could imagine that." About 3 years later, I learned that Naomi was married and expecting her first child, a girl. Naomi and Joni's spirit babies chose to remain with their prospective parents. Some spirit babies, however, do not have that option. If after an abortion, a prospective mother chooses not to have children, The spirit baby must find another way to fulfill its destiny. In this next story, a spirit baby relies on past memories to find its way to a new home. Will you be my mommy? Elizabeth was at a crossroads in her career. She had several lucrative job offers and wanted my clairvoyant perspective on which one she should take. When I looked into her aura, however, the most prominent image on the green oval was the green oval of a spirit baby floating above her left shoulder. The spirit baby had attached itself to Elizabeth's sixth chakra, just below the center of the forehead, with a cord of iridescent purple light. The iridescent quality of the light immediately caught my attention. Spirit babies use this color when they are trying to make their presence known to a prospective parent. When I told Elizabeth a potential child was trying to communicate with her, she closed her eyes and said nothing. She only nodded when I asked if she wanted me to find out more information about the spirit. As I refocused my attention on the spirit baby, a stream of images began to appear. A woman carrying a basket walks up to the back door of the farmhouse just before dawn. She places the basket in front of the door and hurries away. Moments later, an older woman opens the door. Reaching down, she lifts the child out of the basket and hugs it to her breast. After the images ended, the green oval of the spirit baby reappeared. A whispery voice, neither male nor female, began to speak. She took me in. She loved me. Will she love me again? How did you come to know Elizabeth at this time? I asked telepathically. Her sister no longer wants children, so I came here. The spirit would say nothing more, and I turned my attention back to Elizabeth. I described the scenario that I had just witnessed. I told her the spirit had once come to her as a foundling whom she had loved and cherished. The spirit had been left on her doorstep again in this lifetime when her sister decided not to have children. Elizabeth was a bit overwhelmed by this information, but felt it all made sense. I helped my sister through an abortion a few months ago. It was a life-changing event for her. She decided not to have kids. My husband and I had not planned to have children, but ever since the abortion, all we've talked about is having kids. I explained that the energy cord the spirit baby had to her sixth chakra would make it hard to think about anything else. Spirits use this chakra when they're trying to influence the thought processes of their prospective parents. The spirit baby wants to make the conception contract with you and your husband, I continued. The old contract with your sister has been dissolved. The spirit is drawn to you karmically because you represent a loving, nurturing home, but the next choice is really yours. If my husband and I decide not to have kids, will the spirit have a place to go? I refocused my attention on the spirit baby and asked the question. When I told Elizabeth the spirit's baby reply, we both laughed. I won't need another place, said the spirit baby. The spirit baby's confidence proved well-founded. Elizabeth was pregnant within a year. As I noted earlier in this chapter, spirit babies are most concerned with the intent behind an abortion. Do you still want me? Is the question foremost in their minds. If the answer to this question is no, most spirit babies show a great resilience and creativity. When Elizabeth's sister dissolved the conception contract, her spirit baby did not mourn the loss. Searching past life memories, the spirit baby found Elizabeth, a special healing person who was willing to create a new contract. This ability to adapt and change is one of the defining characteristics of most spirit babies. They do not mourn the past, but actually seek out those with whom they can create a loving, secure future. In this instant, it was another family member, but often it is someone from the spirit baby's past who is not related to their current situation. There are those spirit babies, however, who have a decidedly negative reaction to abortion. They feel abortion has deprived them of the means to create the life they want. These spirit babies often harbor an intense anger that keeps them from rejoining their prospective families for years. However, even the most recalcitrant spirit baby can change, especially when it hears the healing voice of its mother's heart. The angriest spirit baby. Ruth and her husband were thinking about an addition to their family. We already have 2 children, she explained after she sat down for her reading, but I feel like our family is incomplete, like something's missing. My girlfriend told me you could see spirits of unborn children. Is there one waiting to join our family? Looking into Ruth's aura, I could discern the energy forms of her husband and two daughters. There was, however, no trace of a spirit baby. I reported this fact and suggested that if she wished to have a child, we would call a spirit baby to her. I'd barely finished my suggestion when I felt a light slap to the side of my head. As this kind of phenomenon usually indicates a new spirit has entered the room, I focused clairvoyantly to see what had appeared. There was the angriest spirit baby I'd ever seen. Inside of a dark blue oval, the figure of a small boy was outlined in red. His fists were clenched, and he looked as if he were holding his breath, much like a child having a tantrum. When I asked him what was wrong, he shook his fist at me and then sputtered, "She made me wait. I should have been first." "You should have been Ruth's first child?" I asked. "Yes, I should have been the first," the spirit repeated forcefully. "How did she make you wait?" "She had an abortion. I should have been first." "Why would she want you to be first so much? Or why did you want to be first so much?" "Because everyone likes the first child the best," replied the spirit with an air of, "How stupid can you be? Why didn't you come when Ruth was ready to have children?" "She made me wait, so I made her wait," the spirit said indignantly. Then the dark blue oval became opaque. Any further questions were met with a stony silence. Intuitively, I felt a real loneliness and the desire to be loved beneath the spirit baby's anger. Specifically, I knew I wanted to be loved by Ruth. A spirit baby can decide to abandon a conception contract if it wishes. Despite his rage, he had not abandoned the conception contract with Ruth. If he could get over his rage, I intuitively knew we would be happy with Ruth and her family. When I told Ruth the spirit baby's story, it brought tears to her eyes. "It's sad to think he has been alone for so long. It's been nearly 15 years since I had the abortion. Why didn't he come back when I had my first child?" Spirit babies, like children, have different temperaments. Some are easygoing, while others are very reactive and emotional when they don't get what they want. This spirit baby was very reactive. Like a child having a tantrum, he had become so consumed by his own rage that he couldn't respond to anything else. Ironically, his anger deprived him of what he wanted most, to be your first child. Why do you think that being first was so important to him? His experiences in other lifetimes has taught him that the first child is the most loved and wanted. It's a good example of how karma can create self-imposed limits. For this spirit baby, being the first was the only option. It is the only way he knows how to get the love and affection he needs. Ruth took a long breath. "From the moment you began to speak about the spirit, I knew that he was the missing member of our family. Is there any way we can help him?" she asked. "You know, I can apologize for any hurt or pain he suffered, but I can't apologize for the abortion. At the time, I had major health problems. Pregnancy was too big of a risk to take." I told Ruth that there was no need to apologize for the past. While acknowledging the spirit baby's feelings will help the healing process, what is most important now is to show him he's loved and wanted. You cannot change his past, but you can offer him the love and nurturing he needs for the future. Ruth was eager to begin the process of connecting with her spirit baby, so I asked her to take a moment to focus on the fourth chakra at the center of her chest. After she centered herself with a few breaths, I guided her through the meditative visualization. Imagine you are walking through the woods looking for your child. When you find him, tell him you're glad he did not go away. Let the healing voice of your heart speak to him and invite him to rejoin your family. As I guided Ruth through the visualization, I watched the spirit baby's reaction. After a few minutes, the blue shell around the spirit baby began to melt away, drop by drop, like ice melting on a warm winter's day. When the shell had completely dissolved, an image of Ruth soothing a crying child appeared. The child seemed to cry for a long time before he finally fell asleep in her lap. I opened my eyes to check on Ruth. She was dabbing away tears with her handkerchief. When I asked about the visualization, her only comment was, "I think everything will be all right now." Ruth was right. 1 year later, she gave birth to a boy. The family was complete. The anger of Ruth's spirit baby was very strong, but his desire to be loved and accepted by her was even stronger. When I guided Ruth through the visualization, the natural healing energy of that chakra created a space where the spirit baby could drop his anger and release the tears of loneliness. He was finally able to leave the past behind and embrace the love and nurturing available to him. A spirit baby's reaction to anger to an abortion can sometimes spill over into their next incarnation. Even when a spirit baby and mother fulfilled the conception contract at a later date, there can still be residual anger from the abortion. Again, spirit babies have very individual responses to any changes made in the conception contract. Occasionally, I've encountered mothers with young children who are still very angry over an earlier abortion. With these particular angry individuals, when the issue was not dealt with sufficiently in the spirit baby realm, it manifests in our world to be dealt with. Holding on to anger. I received a phone call from a woman on the East Coast named Nora who wanted to set up an appointment by phone. Her therapist had referred her to me because she was trying to work on some problems she was having with her 5-year-old daughter. On the day of her appointment, she only had one question for me. Tell me everything you can about my daughter, Charlotte. I focused clairvoyantly on Nora, her connection with her daughter, and then on Charlotte. Just as spirit babies are energetically connected to their prospective parents, children also are connected to their parents, usually through energy cords. Charlotte's aura was more ragged than the average 5-year-old's and had jagged spotch claws of an intense red color, which often indicates a very angry person. When I focused on these splotches of red, I began to see a series of images that kept replaying. Charlotte was very happily laughing, skipping towards a house with an open front door. Just as she would get to the porch of the house, of the door would slam shut in her face. When this happened, Charlotte would get very angry and begin to cry. Suddenly, the image would change, and Charlotte would be inside the house, and her mother would be on the porch. In this image, Charlotte would angrily slam the door when she saw her mother approaching. I was surprised to see that the images seemed to be taking place in what looked like a reproduction of the spirit baby realm. Charlotte's anger reminded me of spirit babies who were angry at their prospective parents after an abortion. I relayed everything I'd seen to Nora. I was surprised when she said in a raised voice, I knew it. I had an abortion about 10 years ago, and when Charlotte's father and I got pregnant, it felt exactly the same time when I'd been pregnant before with someone else. But I don't mean that I just knew that I was pregnant. It felt like the same baby who came back. I always thought it was, but I never told anyone I thought that. You've also described the exact problem I'm having with Charlotte. One moment, she is the happiest, most affectionate child in the world, and the next minute, she's so angry it seems like she hates me. My therapist and I have tried many different things, none of them have worked. That's why she referred me to you. She wanted me to get a spiritual perspective on the situation. Nora went on to say that she didn't understand why Charlotte would still be mad about the abortion, since she'd end up coming back to her. I could tell that Nora loved her daughter tremendously, but felt impatient with Charlotte's anger and had she needs to get over it attitude about the situation. However, for Charlotte, the feelings of being shut out of Nora's life because of the abortion were very real and still lingered, even though she was not consciously aware of them. As I continued to look at this situation clairvoyantly, I found that Nora had a cord with her daughter that came from her third chakra. It is very common energetic connection between parents and children. This type of cord says, I'm responsible for your safety, so I will give you rules and boundaries to live by. However, what Charlotte really needed in order to get over her anger was a sense of acknowledgement and acceptance. I told Nora that the best way to create a more harmonious relationship with her daughter was to connect with her energetically through a cord from her fourth or heart chakra. This connection would send a constant energy of acceptance and acknowledgement to Charlotte. I showed Nora how to make the connection and gave her a meditation to do every day to work on the situation. About 6 months later, Nora called to let me know there had been significant improvement with Charlotte and that her daughter's intense anger was pretty much gone now. Most spirit babies do not react to an abortion with anger, and even fewer will carry it out to the next incarnation. Once a conception contract is renegotiated, spirit babies are generally happy to wait for the right time to return to their prospective parents. Charlotte showed no conscious awareness of the abortion. For almost all spirit babies, the experiences of the pre and post conception world are forgotten when they become children. While I have seen cases where I believe abortion was a factor in affecting a child's behavior, these children, like Charlotte, had no memory of the experience. Most children do not consciously remember their experiences in the spirit or baby world. The very nature of this world does not promote creating memories. The spirit baby world is a transitional space between lifetimes on the earth plane. Unlike past life experiences, which are anchored in our memories by references to specific people, places, or time periods, experiences in the spirit baby world lack such well defined reference points. In a world where there is no linear time and landscape, constantly and the landscape constantly changes with the spirit's baby's every thought and emotion, everything that does not promote life is discarded. In the beginning of this chapter, I noted that whether or not a spirit baby returns after an abortion depends on the prospective mother's intention. Another factor that determines whether a spirit baby stays or goes is karma, the spirit baby's individual destiny. Some spirit babies can fulfill their destiny with any number of prospective parents. If one decides not to have children, they always find another who will love and cherish them. There are spirit babies, however, whose destiny can only be fulfilled by being the child of one particular person or couple. For these spirit babies, even a prospective mother's intention not to have children after an abortion does not alter their karmic path. A change of heart. Kay was a successful entrepreneur in her early 30s. She was having a difficult time finding a suitable partner. All the men I meet want to have children, and that's not what I want to do, she told me after I had taken a preliminary look at her aura. Can you see if I will ever find a man whose interests are compatible with mine? Kay's question surprised me. From the moment she entered my office, I felt a strong presence of a spirit baby. When we sat down for the reading, I looked at her clairvoyantly. The glowing oval of a spirit baby was the most prominent feature in her aura. I expected her first question to be, how can I find a man who wants to start a family? When I shared my first impression with Kay, she was shocked. That's impossible. I do not want to have children, she insisted. The spirit you see must be something else. Find out what it's doing in my aura. I returned my focus to the spirit baby. In place of the glowing oval was an image of an old nun. A calming orange gold light radiated from the figure. When I asked the spirit, who are you? A kindly older woman's voice emanated from the image. I am the spirit who wishes to be Kay's child. I knew her many centuries ago. A small tableau of figures appeared next to the nun. A young novice was praying earnestly over a bedridden elderly nun. Kay's prayers for my recovery were answered, said the spirit. I was able to walk again. I was to spend my final years actively serving and giving glory to God. My place is with Kay now. I will be her child and take care of her when she is old. When I began to tell the spirit that Kay did not want children in this lifetime, the spirit stopped me. Kay feels unworthy to have a child. She had an abortion many years ago. She believes I am dead. She still mourns and cries for me at night. Tell Kay I still live. I will help her begin to heal. Only when she ceases to mourn will she know her true feelings about children. Kay began to cry softly as I related the spirit baby's story and healing message. She's not dead, was all she could manage to say for quite some time. When her tears subsided, Kay asked if I could teach her to communicate with the spirit baby. I thought she was dead for so long, I needed to feel connected to her again, she said earnestly. I need to experience the spirit's presence myself to know that she's really there. I showed Kay the basics of spirit baby communication. I also offered her a self-forgiveness meditation to help her accept her past and be open to the possibilities of the present. We made an appointment to meet again a month later. When Kay returned for her appointment, she was convinced the spirit baby was real. Kay attended my weekly meditation service over the next year. Then Kay's schedule changed, so she couldn't get to the service any longer, and I lost track of her. Several years later, a bouquet of roses showed up unexpectedly at my office. With the bouquet was a note. I'm due in December. Thank you so much, Kay. Kay and her spirit baby had a karmic bond. Healed by Kay's prayers in a distant lifetime, The grateful spirit baby wanted to reverse the roles. The old nun knew her destiny was to be Kay's healer. Kay's decision not to have children in this lifetime would not change the spirit's karmic path. The spirit baby had already waited 2 lifetimes and was willing to wait a third in order to fulfill her destiny as Kay's child. When the spirit baby was able to communicate her healing message to Kay, the stage was set to complete the karma. Once Kay knew the abortion did not kill the spirit baby, she began to free herself from the guilt and that made her feel unworthy to have a child. Communication with her spirit baby helped Kay find the healer she needed and allowed an old nun to repay a karmic debt. There are those who believe that abortion denies the spirit baby a chance at human life. This is not a belief held in the spirit baby realm. In the 20 years I've worked with spirit babies, I have not encountered any who claimed an abortion ultimately deprived them of their right to human life. Some may be lost, confused, or angry and need special attention, but even for them, abortion is an emotional rather than a life or death issue. A spirit baby must pursue its karmic destiny and find a place in the human world. Abortion delays, but does not deny this destiny. Spirit babies inhabit a nurturing, life-affirming world where every life is meant, and where every life that is meant to be will find its place. If you have an abortion, it is important to remember that you have consciously interrupted the conception contract. To your spirit baby, this means you need to either renegotiate or dissolve the terms of this contract. Communicating with your spirit baby will help both of you clarify and resolve any issues arising from the abortion. Rather than brooding over what may have been, you will both be able to bring your relationship up into the potential of the present. Breath exercises. Healing voice of the heart. The following meditation, Healing Voice of the Heart, allows someone and their spirit baby to communicate in an atmosphere of love, compassion, and acceptance. I often recommend this meditation to clients before and after an abortion because of its ability to bring healing and closure. Sit in a comfortable chair with your back straight and your feet flat on the floor. Place your hands palm up on your thighs. Listen to your breath. This is an act of acceptance that will ground and center you. Inhale as long as it takes you to inwardly say to yourself, my inhalation is the breath of compassion. Time your exhalation to the phrase, my exhalation is the voice of healing. Use this 2-part affirmation to pace your inhalation and exhalation for up to 5 to 10 minutes. When you are finished, center yourself again by listening to your breath. Now imagine that you're walking through a forest and looking for your spirit baby. When you find your spirit baby, touch the center of your chest with your right hand and pour out your heart to the spirit baby. Talk about the reasons for the abortion, your feelings, and whether you want the spirit baby to stay. After you have finished, sit quietly and give the spirit baby the opportunity to speak. When you want to bring the meditation to end, chant hum ah, I ah, hum ah, om 10 times. This chant brings healing, reconciliation, and peace to both you and the spirit baby.